Gonna bounce this guy, draw a card. Go ahead.
It's F&M Friday. We're here just playing some cards, and then we have a big tournament here for Legacy tomorrow, so I'm just trying to get some people cards and make it a sure race for tomorrow.
Right now I'm playtesting Painter Servant.
I am playtesting the Mono Blue High Tide Time Spiral deck.
I'm really torn between either Goblins or Dredge because in the current metagame it seems like there's a lot of anti-creature decks that would do really well against Goblins, and having a whole bunch of bad matchups isn't ideal, especially since Goblins isn't very good against combo. But at the same time, Dredge is a lot easier to hate against, and everybody just generally keeps their Dredge hate on, so I'll probably go with Goblins, but I'm not 100% right now.
I really wanted to get into Legacy. I mean, it's a really fun format, and every time I was really close to getting into it, they jumped the prices like 20 bucks on all the major cards, like Force of Will. It was like 25 a year ago, less than a year ago. Then it jumped to 50, and then it jumped to 70, and now it's 90, I think. So I'm not really sure if I'm gonna really be able to get the cards again in this format, or at least realistically. I mean, I could spend, entire paycheck on, a set of Candelabra, but I really don't want to do that. So I think it's pretty ridiculous, and I'm definitely not gonna be playing the format unless I can borrow a deck.
I think they're accurate reflections of supply and demand. I think the scarcity of card was so undervalued for a long time that we're finally catching up to the point to where the ability to obtain a card is reflected in the price of the card. Like there were only, Candelabra Prominence is a perfect example of this. There were only 30,000 Candelabras printed, and that's a very small number compared to how many people play Magic and would need a play set. Ben Blaweiss even said that he would be surprised if there were more than 250 play sets in circulation. So charging $250 for a card that's only 1,000 circulating isn't that unreasonable.
Every game is like a game of chess. Like it's standard, a lot of matchups you just know it's going to happen. There's not a whole lot of interactions that are weird and unusual, but in Legacy there's so many different decks. Every single time you play, you're not guaranteed to win. And you actually have to play every single game.
It's tough because, I mean, there are cheap decks out there, and there's decks that are playable that are relatively cheap. Like Affinity, it's pretty easy to hate out, but if it's not, you can definitely win events. And we saw it win a Star City event within the past month or two. So, if you want to get in cheap like that, that's a good way to do it. Otherwise, invest in expensive cards that are gonna stick around. Like dual lands, they're never gonna reprint, and those are always gonna be good.
It's supposed to stay positive, because if you don't have a positive mindset, it's really hard to win in general. But I feel realistically with Goblins, maybe I'll go 3-2. It depends on how much people have hated it out and what kinds of decks end up being popular. But I did last tournament in a similar metagame go 4-0-1, so with Goblins. So who knows? I mean, you can just get the right matchups, or sometimes you, like I did then, get a lot of unlucky opponents. So I expect to be about average, but you never know. I could go all the way.
You see Standard every Friday, you kind of get used to it. Once you go to Legacy, the card pool just explodes, and you have to pick up cards and be like, what's this card do?
It's the Legacy Grand Prix Trial Providence, but we're also giving away a Mox Emerald to first place and a Bizarre Baghdad to second place, plus additional in-store credit prizes.
Basically, it's probably 50% combo decks here, and my deck is completely geared towards beating combo decks.
I'm playing a deck called Mean Deck Mud. Plays a lot of big artifacts and plays them quickly and tries to beat the opponent that way.
I'm actually coming with the homebrew deck, and it's Show and Tell Eureka with Phyrexian Dreadnought, Stifle, Mosswort Bridge. I'm actually calling it Hogwarts because there's this guy online and that's the name he came up with, so I thought, keep it with it.
It's a tribal deck and it runs a bunch of merfolk and counter spells, uses Ether Vial to get them out for free, and then uses Standstill so when your opponent plays a spell, you get to draw cards and counterspell whatever you played.
Legacy attracts a very, very different format than Standard. It usually attracts older players, for one. It's said to be more skill intensive, and I pretty much agree with that. Because overall, piloting the deck is huge, especially with the level of complexity of these decks. And not only the complexity of your deck, but you have to understand the complexity of their deck. And because of that, and a number of decks, you just have to have that amount of information. And for someone jumping in, it's going to be very tough. So usually you're going to have older, more seasoned players playing Legacy.
I actually just got back in Magic about 6 months ago, and so I don't play Standard. I had all the cards to play Legacy, and so that's what I did. I started playing Legacy, looked at what decks were doing good, and really liked how Show and Tell was working. So I decided to go a little variation off of that. Don't see many Eurekas, and so I thought, try to throw those in, see what I could do with them. Throw a lot more creatures in there, try to fill up the board quicker.
I like Legacy format a lot. It's the most healthy format in all of Magic, by far. You can play any archetype you're interested in, there's a viable deck for it. Everything you can think of, like there's a mono green Stompy deck that's 3-in-1 here today. There's any flavor combo you want to play. Storm combos, fine. Like there's that High Tide combo deck, which is like really good. There's aggressive decks, tribal decks, everything. Like because the cards are so powerful, you can tweak your decks to make it viable in the format.
There's tons of room to innovate, create new decks, come into a metagame with something unknown and really do something fun. Yeah, I love Legacy. It's absolutely awesome.
It's not overpowered like Vintage is, and you don't have to worry about trying to invest cards every single week for Standard. And most of the decks that are in the top rotate in and out, and there's a wide variety of decks to play.
That's one thing I like most about Legacy, is because you can really just play whatever you want.
I decided to play Goblins. I just enjoy playing the little red guys. Like, it's bad against combo decks, but it's good against a lot of creature decks.
So I was playtesting Mono Blue, High Tide, Time Spiral, basically this past week, and that's the only deck I've been playtesting. It wasn't doing that well, so I was kind of on the fence about it, but my friend was offered to lend me the deck, and he kind of already decided on another deck to play. So I just figured I'd go ahead and stick with it. It's the only deck I really put much practice into, and then figured no matter which way it goes, it's probably the best chance for me.
It seemed like a bad choice initially because I thought I'd see a lot of combo decks and other stuff, but I ended up playing against a lot of creature decks, and even though there were bad matchups for some of them, like I ended up getting there.
I lost the first round, won the second round, and then lost the third round, so I was basically out by round 3. And I ended up scooping to a friend of mine in round 5. I was 2-2, he was 2-1-1, so he had a chance to get in the top 8. And a 4-2 could get in, but with my tiebreakers, it wasn't going to happen, so I just went ahead and scooped to him, and he's playing in the top 8 right now. So
I'm pretty satisfied with Goblins. I think Ratchet Bomb is an interesting card. I never actually got to play it at any point in time, but it's more of a card for mono red Goblins because it'll deal with any problem that you have, even though you're just red. But I was already playing things like Crosan Grips. It just meant that I was playing only 2 of my 3 Crosan Grips instead. I think Retro Bomb could work. I have no real play experience with it against somebody, but it seems like it could get rid of the problem cards that annoy Goblins, especially Tarmogoyfs and Engineered Plagues and Knight of the Reliquaries.
I think Legacy is a really good format. It's very broad, but I think there's 6 decks that are probably more powerful than the rest.
It's great in that, but the other fact is, in honesty, although we say you can build from this giant pool, there's like only a handful of, I don't know, maybe easily less than 1,000, let's say like 500 cards you actually will pull from, because those are the more powerful cards in Magic. And whenever you play, no matter what, the only top few cards are actually selected. Even in Standard, that's true. There's so many cards in Standard that you never touch. Just like in Legacy is the same thing.
Legacy is just so wide open that, I don't know, I could see it going pretty far as long as the prices don't keep jumping up ridiculously high.
The prices are going way up, and it's getting outrageous. I mean, before, when I started playing Legacy, you could get dual lands for $20 to $50. Now they're $100, and there's cards that are just way too expensive.
That is the essential issue or problem with Legacy. One thing people have to realize, which is really weird to think about, is think of cards as actually an investment. It's very odd to think about that because Magic cards actually are pretty easy to pick up and drop. If you pick up a dual land for $50, you probably can sell that dual land right back down for $50 pretty easily. You can't say that about a lot of other things. You can't like buy a golf club and sell it for almost the exact same amount you bought it after you even used it slightly. Like, you can't do that. So you have to view it as like a long-term thing. You have to like build your things out over time. Judge time. You have a misdirection targeting pact negation. Okay? And it's pretty much what it comes to is Legacy becomes like the same price as Vintage or something like that. That's what are the levels where the Legacy will start like flatting.
It's just not healthy for the format, so something needs to be done in the next few years for our format to survive.
I don't think there's much to do about it unless Wizards abolishes the reserved list, which they're pretty much not going to do. Card availability is a problem with an Eternal format. and that's limits the growth of it, which is unfortunate. Maybe we'll get some kind of solution from Wizards of the Coast, but they're about the only ones who can provide one.